All right. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's I am in Auckland, New Zealand, so it's 7:58 a.m. for me, and my special guest, Bart Giordano, is actually in California, right, Bart?
Yes.
Yes.
Noontime. It's lunch.
Yeah, on a Monday. Happy Monday. So welcome, everyone. Okay, so we have 2 minutes to go. And before we start and kick it off, it's going to be punchy. So 30 minutes, lightning lesson. Again, welcome. My name is Ren Sagil. I have been in tech sales for more than 20 plus, 25 years. Ruckus Wireless, now Ruckus Networks, used to be my playground. And that's why I have Bart with me. I also worked at Vodafone, Alcatel-Lucent, now Nokia, and now currently I'm one of the instructors here at Maven, and I'm a fractional CRO and also a sales coach. So this is being recorded just to remind you, and we'll give you a copy after 48 hours. So sorry, let's begin. Welcome, everyone. So would like to know where you are. If you could put in the chat your location, and welcome again. So we still have a minute to go. Let's spend that, if I can see in the chat where you are. Oh, Switzerland. Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Chicago. Love Chicago. Always, Beth. Orlando. Yes, I have been in Disneyland. Yeah, long wait. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Quebec, Canada. No, Steve, you were so early. Thank you so much for waiting. Awesome. All right, it's 8 o'clock. Okay, let me just share my screen so I'll take care of all of the logistics. It's just me here. All right. Hey, Bart, welcome. So I'm really excited to have Bart Giordano. Bart is the president of Ruckus Networks, and Bart leads the networking, intelligence, cellular, and security solutions at CommScope. He drives the development of enterprise networking and wireless mobility solutions. So that's actually my jam. I sell complex deals. So with over 20 years of experience with various technical and business roles, he led Ruckus Networks right now. And Bart is actually an engineer by education. So we'll know more about that from Cal Poly. Welcome, Bart. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Ren, and thanks to all of you for tuning in today.
Awesome. Just making sure I'm recording. Yes, I am recording. All right. So let's start, Bart. So it's all about how to break into sales leadership, right? So my first question.
Yeah.
So to set the scene, by the way, we'll spend 20 minutes with Bart on three questions that I've prepared. And just give me 2 minutes to talk about my course and then Q&A, okay? So Bart, as a sales leader, what are the top 3 skills that create the most impact for you?
Sure. So I think as I think around the skills that are important for a sales leader, these are skills that probably apply to many different leadership opportunities. First and foremost, you got to be a strategic thinker. I think those of us that came up in roles as individual contributors or different types of sales roles, they can tend to be, somewhat tactical. And as you elevate your career in sales or any role, you need to be able to start seeing the bigger picture. And in sales, that means being able to anticipate shifts in the market and positioning your team to win deals, perhaps why the competitors are caught off guard. You want to stay out in front of the business and out in front of the market. So how do you do that? First of all, a lot of thoughtful planning. And certainly this is the time of the year when I'm sure many of you in your own businesses are going through your strategic planning cycle and thinking about how are you going to drive growth in your business in the years to come. So you need to be able to stay updated on market trends. You need a lot of feedback from your customers. You need to understand what your competitors are doing. I also think, it's important that your role in sales or as a sales leader is not siloed within the organization. A lot of perspective will come from working with cross-functional teams in the organization so that you can get a perspective of the business from all angles. Certainly your marketing team, your product team, your finance team are going to bring you perspectives that will help you devise that strategic plan, anticipate those market shifts, and really strike the market while, again, your competitors may be off guard, and put you in a position in order to be more successful. Obviously, there's a lot of decisions that get made along the way, and the most successful businesses and the most successful leaders in them, in my experience, are one that use data to guide their decision making. I think over time, if you've been in an industry for a long time, or you've been around a business for a long time, there's a lot of your day-to-day that you may operate on intuition from your experience. But for the really big decisions, you want to be able to have instrumentation that helps you analyze your past sales performance so that you can forecast those future opportunities and really anticipate those market trends that will give you a competitive advantage.
Cool. But Bart, I have a question. So, and this is always a
Please.
challenge, right? You mentioned marketing and even finance. How do you specifically ensure as the leader to, these groups are aligned? You know how marketing will go on doing something and sales is going to do something.
Yeah.
You talked about it.
Yeah, some of this comes down to different organizational structures and even in cultures in our business. In my businesses, we like to say everybody works for sales, right?
Nice.
At the end of the day, sales is the revenue generating engine for a company, right? And so we want our teams to be in tune with what the sales strategy is, and we want our teams to be aligned, and we want our teams to be supportive and responsive and operate with a sense of urgency as we're out selling. And so, we want salespeople to reach into the business. We want sales leaders to reach into the various cross-functional teams of the business. And we have an expectation that those other cross-functional leaders and contributors are responsive and are guiding the sales organization based on what they see as the most important trends or opportunities in the marketplace.
Great. So you can really say that Ruckus is a sales-driven organization.
I think all organizations that are trying to generate revenue better have a culture of very strong sales-led organization.
Awesome.
We have great technology. I don't want to take anything away from that. Obviously, the worst thing in the world as a sales leader or seller is trying to sell something you don't believe in. We have fantastic technology that our sales teams and everybody across the business truly believes in, and truly believes in the value and the proposition to our buyers. But at the end of the day, what drives a business forward in revenue, and that really comes from the front end of the business.
Awesome. So you spoke about, I don't know if you've covered emotional intelligence or we're just getting into it.
No, I think we're getting there. Again, similar to other leadership roles, but perhaps given the variety of personalities and I would say the variety of skill sets and experience that you find across a large sales organization, and just the nature of sales itself being very relationship based, a sales leader really requires strong interpersonal skills, and those are not something you necessarily have to be born with. A lot of people sort of naturally have strong interpersonal skills, but they're things you can work on, and even beyond that, and kind of getting under the surface of social and interpersonal skills is really knowing, how to motivate, how to build trust with your team members and customers, and knowing when to push them and when to back off, right? And that comes from being an active listener and being in tune with the emotional state and perspective and needs of your team. It comes with leading with transparency, fostering an environment where open communication channels are welcomed, and through those communication channels, your response and the response of others on your leadership team are always empathetic. And then it comes through a lot of self-reflection and understanding, your own emotional state and how that impacts and guides how you want to respond to your team. So I think that developing emotional intelligence actively, whether you believe that this is an innate skill set that you carry is really, really important in terms of your career development and your development as a sales leader.
Yeah, so I wanted to hone on that, Bart, because
Yeah,
I wanted this to be really open and transparent. So, I've been in
yeah,
sales for last 25 years, and it can be really, really be brutal. Like,
it is.
especially, running after your quota, you're only good as your last number. That's the reality,
Yeah,
right? And and it's been tough in the last few months, especially in tech sales. So how do you
certainly.
manage that with empathy? Because you look at performance, and then you have some non-performers sometimes. How do you manage
Sure.
that and make sure you strengthen them? It's just so tough, right? Because I've seen, as what I've told you earlier, I've seen some leaders lose their S, and they're just in the boardroom. I've seen those ugly
Yeah.
things. So how do you manage that?
No, I think we've all been there, and that does come down to your emotional intelligence and your ability to command your emotions. I think there are certainly circumstances in which you need to be firm with a team, and you need to set an expectation around sales excellence. But you also need to do that with empathy, understanding that in sales, a lot of times there's things beyond our control, right? Um, Oftentimes, if you do foster an open line of communication and you deal transparency with your team, you'll understand that there's other things going on in someone's life personally that impact their ability to execute, even for the strongest sales performers in the organization. Being in tune only comes with creating that open environment and having a check-in process with your team, your direct reports, and even the next one or two levels down, depending on the size and structure of your organization. So you can really keep the pulse on what's going on in a geography.
Are you okay, Bart? Did I lose you, Bart? Um, I'm still here. I can see you. Uh,
Apologies for that.
no worries.
We had an emergency alert come in here in California over everyone's
Oh,
phone, and it disrupted the audio momentarily. So sorry, I don't know where I dropped off.
no, it's all good, but you're fine?
Yeah, all good. It was
Okay.
a
No,
broadcast emergency.
oh, okay, okay. So you're mentioning something about, I think something like psychological safety and transparency.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that you have a systematic way to keep the pulse on your team so that you're able to respond to those situations where, you need to lean in and maybe understand a little more deeply what's going on interpersonally with people or with certain teams, so that you can respond accordingly.
Awesome. Because that's going to be a good segue to our next one. But the last one
You
was
bet.
coaching and mentorship. So
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think, salespeople, regardless of where you are in your career, perform best when they're given guidance, feedback, and opportunities for growth, right? We're all here because we are trying to find ways to advance our career, to actively learn and to be always, pushing our careers forward. And I think, the most effective leaders really invest their time coaching their team on skills. What are the important sales skills? Negotiation, product knowledge and positioning, how to engage a customer, how to qualify an opportunity.
some,
These are skills that are learned, right?
yeah,
And are passed down from successful salespeople to folks earlier in their career. And in our business, I would say some of this happens naturally, right? A
did I
formal
lose you, Bart?
program.
Hey, Bart.
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
okay, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, we've actually structured a formal program
yeah.
in our business in order
Okay.
to do matchmaking between mentors and mentees, and it's
Nice.
an opt-in program. I'd say not everybody maybe has the time or the skill set or the desire to do this, but it's incredibly impactful to have younger sales
Yeah.
folks, in a structured program, be able to be mentored by folks that have been doing this successfully throughout their career.
So how do you, last question on this slide. So, Bart, how do you think, like someone 8 years into their career and they're into sales, they
Yeah,
want to be a sales leader. So,
sure.
um, what can they do now to start building all of these three skills? I mean, I know it's a big question, but what can they do now?
I would say that all of the skills we've talked about here apply equally to individual contributor as a sales leader, right? You need to think strategically about your territory or the vertical you're covering or the accounts
Yeah.
that you own, right? So you can certainly hone those strategic thinking skills. Sales is inherently relationship based, and so you need high emotional intelligence to be
Mm,
successful when engaging customers, when engaging partners, and when engaging folks across your organization who you need some support from to be successful in your current role. And then I would say there's always opportunities for coaching and mentorship
yeah.
all around us, whether it's as a parent, whether it is among your peer group, and certainly in the workplace. I think you will always find that there are individuals that are seeking out mentorship from those that are more experienced and that they look up to and are successful. And you
Yeah.
should in turn find opportunities to serve as a mentor, whether that's as part of a formal program or informally, because I think I've learned probably as much from people I've mentored
Yeah.
throughout my career they've learned from me.
Would you say it's okay? Last year, would you say
Yeah.
it's okay? And what would be the right way to do it? Like, I'm five years into the company, I'm an individual contributor, and I want to be a sales leader to put forward and say, hey Bart, I'm looking into my career. I want to go into that direction. Um, I'd like you to support me. What can I do? Is that something that you would encourage?
Of course, and I
Yeah.
would I would demonstrate that I've honed these critical skills, and I tell this to everyone. The single most important thing you can do, and I think we've talked about this before, Ren, is
Yeah.
invest in your network, right?
Yes.
As I look back on my career, I've never got a job applying to a job board or, um, you know, without any connection into a business, been able to land that job that I wanted without leveraging my network. And so it's very important to hone these skills. But at the end of the day, it's going to be somebody who appreciates those skills and knows you and knows what you bring to the table. And in my career, I've been very fortunate. I've moved through a variety of different roles across a variety of different industries.
Yeah.
But to somebody hiring you, that looks like risk, right? And so if you
Mm,
want to make a big career jump from an individual contributor to leadership, or you want to try sales in a different industry than you're in today, that's going to be viewed as risk to somebody that doesn't
yeah.
know you. But if
True.
you've invested in a network and you've demonstrated these skills to somebody that appreciates the raw talent and ambition that you bring to the table, you can overcome that and get that next big job.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, networking. Totally. So, a question here is, I think we've discussed this earlier, and this is something that everyone knows. It's not rocket science, but it's just really hard when you're new at something, you want to do it, but you try to be perfect, read everything. So, what's your advice on how to reduce your time spent on learning these skills?
Well, so I think that we're fortunate in today's age that information is always at our fingertips, and doing research on skills development or any other aspect of sales or leadership is really at our fingertips.
Yeah.
But in my career, there's no substitute for getting out there, rolling up your sleeves and doing it and trying it, even when you're uncomfortable. We touched on this offline. I think the highest periods of growth I've ever had in my career have been when I am at peak discomfort, meaning I'm doing something for the first time. I'm feeling very unsure that I'm equipped to make the decisions and take the actions that I need to. There's a high likelihood that I will make the wrong decision. Those have always been the periods of highest growth, and I tell everybody there's no substitute from learning by doing, which was actually the motto at my alma mater in Cal Poly, right? It's less about the theory and more about learning and stumbling and recovering and growing along the way.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest part, right? When you stumble getting yourself up. But that's awesome,
Yep.
Bart. So the next one is, so in practical sense, how do you effectively spend your time as a sales leader? We've touched that. I'll share here. So
yeah, I think I'll preface this by saying this is not a hard and fast rule, right? Yeah. Really, you want to be.
I think you're on mute again, Bart. Did I mute you? No, I didn't mute you. No. Can you hear Bart, or is this me?
Okay.
Yes, there you go.
Good. All right. Sorry
Cool.
about the technical
No worries.
difficulties. Very, very unusual. I think you want to think about time management as sort of fluid and something that you should really be active in planning around and thinking through. So again, these are not hard and fast rules, and something that is going to shift based on the circumstances you find yourselves in. But obviously in sales, we want to over bias our time spent with our customers. And even as a sales leader, I would say I spend a disproportionate amount of my time with customers, with partners, with others in our ecosystem that really help us drive the business forward. Again, going back to strategic thinking, this is where I learn about the trends in the market. This is where you identify patterns that are going to help advantage over your competitors and have the biggest impact on driving your team forward. Next is spending time with our team. And I carve out time every week to meet with my leadership team one-to-one and as a group, and also to manage the natural rhythm of the sales organization, right? The weekly forecast calls, the periodic account and deal reviews, and I think that and this is where emotional intelligence comes in a big way. And so spending most of the time externally facing with customers, partners, and others that can drive the business forward, spending a lot of time with our teams so that we can understand what roadblocks exist to getting deals done or helping them execute their job. And then finally, we're spending some time on the strategic planning and monitoring the execution of that strategy. And by monitoring the execution, we've instrumented our business to be able to report and trend on the most important KPIs. The most obvious one being, funnel and funnel trends as a leading indicator, and then actual sales attainment down to the individual rep level as sort of a lagging indicator, and really everything in between. The operational mechanics of our channel and such. So I think that you can kind of follow this rubric in order to think about how to structure your day, your week, your month, and your quarter. And again, these are going to ebb and flow based on maybe where you are in the quarter, where I am in the year. I mean, right now I'm spending more than 20% of my time on strategy, for sure, as we're thinking about going into next year and our long range plan.
Awesome. And what would you think are the non-obvious tasks that doesn't actually have impact? Like, you have those meetings that doesn't really relate.
Meetings with no agendas,
Yeah,
right? If you're being
just
asked
for.
to be in a meeting and there's no agenda and you're not clear on what your role is, you shouldn't be spending your time doing that. And this is really important for sales leaders. I think that we sort of sometimes take for granted that there should be a staff meeting every week and there should be a review meeting every week, and that all takes away from selling time.
Correct.
So first
Yes.
of all, we have a rule in our business: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is selling time, and
Nice. No
we're not going to take away from our sellers time by scheduling operational reviews, or other things that are not directly tied to generating revenue. Will we jump in and do a deal review in the middle of the week? Certainly. If that's a deal
Yeah.
for this quarter, we're going to get it done. But we want to bookend the week, Mondays and Fridays for training, and business reviews, account reviews, and those things that are not directly tied to the immediate quarter's revenue, so that we free up that time during the week for our sellers to sell.
That's awesome. So last question on this slide, you mentioned about skip level one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through how you do it?
Yeah, I tend to run my organizations very flat. So I have a lot of direct reports, which is really intended to help keep a pulse across
Mm,
the entire organization. But I find the most insightful discussions I have are oftentimes with folks further down in the organization, right? I think
yeah.
I do not manage my organization in a very hierarchical structure.
So,
We do not have a chain of command type philosophy at all, because I think that just impedes business, and it really, prevents me from instilling a sense of urgency in the entire organization if everything has to flow down from me through multiple layers of management and then flow back up to get a decision made. We want to push decision making, as close to the field as possible, where it makes sense. And for me, having those skip level opportunities to talk to folks further down in the
again.
organization really helps us, break through bureaucracy in large organizations, um, keep the pulse of the feet on the street, if you will, and
Yeah.
drive the organization forward more urgently.
That's great to hear, Bart, because I know Ruckus is now part of CommScope.
Yeah,
Folks, I was in Ruckus when it was a startup before IPO. And one of the things that I love about Ruckus is that time as a country sales leader. I mean, you're too far off. I'm in New Zealand and Australia. We're very far off from HQ. But I felt so close because and I wasn't sure it's the same, but I guess it's the same culture. I felt so close because if a CFO or a CEO of a client calls me, I can directly go to my management in the headquarters. And even though there's a VP for sales in APAC, no one seems bothered. Like they have that FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like I have to be part of that
yeah,
conversation where it's always like, well, you're right. Are you in a meeting because you have a purpose? So I'll have a quick call and I'm like, hey, I need decisions on this. And if you can contribute to that, no one has hard feelings. So it's great to hear that's still the culture in Ruckus.
you bet.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's I think it's last of our slide, and I'll go through just a minute about the course, and then we'll have some Q&A, but be ready for your Q&A. So guys, I'm actually running a cohort here at Maven. It's from November 12 to 26. This is my sixth cohort. I've got people from, in Capital Bart. Then I have
Yes.
Giga, Telecom, Alibaba Cloud, Eventus, and Curlink. I have a few North American students as well. So 6 live sessions, 29 modules, and we have the B2B sales maturity self-assessment. It's an online assessment that will show you how effective you are in your strategy, as what Bart was saying, your sales process, and your behavioral effectiveness. And honestly, some of the CEOs have asked